Mike Sando, the Athletic senior NFL writer, hanging out with us as he does throughout the season from time to time. Good to see you, man. Good morning.
It's a great morning. Deep into the season, lots of fun stuff. Freaking Detroit and Kansas City can't lose if they try. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
That's a good place to start because they both tried yesterday. In the Open, went through the history of how rare it is for somebody to throw 5 interceptions and still win a football game. It's been 12 years since it happened. But I like the Goff story in combination with Baker, who I know has the loss, and we'll get to Tampa maybe more in depth a little bit later on, and then Darnold, even though maybe the timing for that isn't great because they're leaking a bit. So here's the point: is that I had done all this work on quarterbacks that basically, if they were told to leave as first rounders from the team that drafted them, a failure essentially, and then gone somewhere else, how rare playoff success was. And prior to Goff last year, you'd gone almost like 20 years without a quarterback switching in that scenario where he'd won a playoff game. Stafford doesn't count because Stafford was somebody the other team desired, right? So that was kind of the way I framed the whole thing. But when I look at Baker and I look at Goff, and I know the timing isn't perfect for Darnold after that Jags game yesterday, but looking like he may actually be a guy now in Minnesota long term. Like, how would you compare, contrast the reclamation of those QBs? Because I do wonder if this is something that's possible after so many years of thinking the second stop usually is probably the second to last stop.
So I would put him in a little bit of different buckets. I feel like Goff showed that if he was in a great environment, he'd be a good quarterback. That's what it was in the Rams. I think he's in a great environment now where they have the best offensive line in the league, weapons, run game. Now they even have the defense, improving. So I always thought he was good if it was good around him, and then couldn't overcome as well because he's limited in his ability to create, right? Some of the other guys who can pull a rabbit out of the hat or whatever maybe don't need it as right around him. That's not Goff. It can look really bad if you put him in a bad situation, I believe. Like, I think if he was on a bad team now, we'd see some bad stuff. But he's on a really good team. He can drive the Ferrari, right? That's Goff to me. Darnold hasn't played, even this year, playing well with Minnesota, hasn't played to that level. Even this year. I mean, they have the number one defense. They're winning with defense. Even when he has had some big plays and done some nice things, if you go back and watch the games, it's not as impressive on a throw-to-throw basis, and they're winning with defense. He hasn't really had to win too many games. A few nice plays here or there. I just don't think he has done it as consistently, but has some talent and has been in an extremely bad situation before. So I don't know that would go to the same heights, right? I think Goff, if it's right around him, he can thread the needle. I think he can be precise enough as a player. And make the throws to really do it well. I don't know if Goff or if Darnold were in that situation in Detroit that it would look as good as it does with Goff. Okay, that's just my impression of him as a player. A little sloppier, probably, just not as sharp and refined to me. Mayfield is interesting because he has a little bit of a different mindset than the others. He's a little bit more of a gunslinger, has a little bit more of an attitude. Probably that moxie word gets thrown around with him. Sometimes that gets overused, but I think he's Captain Moxie. And then what's impressed me about him, even though they've lost 4 in a row, is like he's going down swinging with some somewhat diminishing returns, probably throwing it too much. Not the efficiency is not as amazing, but their defense is falling apart. He's losing receivers. This guy's game. He's going to give you a chance to win or lose every week. He may lose the game, but you got a shot. Like he's going to be a 3 touchdown, 2 interception guy when there's asking him to do too much. But that's better than a 2 touchdown, 4 interception guy, right? And I think there's other players that fall like a Jameis Winston kind of goes over that too far, right? You can rally around Jameis, but he's going to have more mistakes. Right? I feel like Baker, like, dang it, watching him, I'm like, I don't know if we're winning the Super Bowl, but I want to play with this guy. Do you get that feel too?
Yeah, especially the last couple of weeks. I mean, I'm not just focusing on the left arm, stiff arm of Bosa on that play where he keeps that play alive. It was huge. They needed to have it. It still seems scientifically impossible that Bosa couldn't, but you're running and you're kind of like ranging. Is it a penalty if you were to rip a player's arm out?
No, I wondered if the mentality of the game now where you're so worried about doing something, to hurt the quarterback and get a 15-yard penalty, even though Bosa, if he's sitting there at his locker and you're asking him about the rules, would know, he knows what they are. But I wonder if in the heat of battle, even sometimes you are like, what can I do here? Because he really should have just ragdoll cartwheeled him, just taken his arm and just thrown him, right? Violently thrown him, which he could do.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point he was figuring, well, I'll close here, but then as you're watching it, and granted on the replay, it's like, oh, it's totally unfair to say, oh, he should have done this, or all these different things. But to your bigger Baker point, that the touchdown drive against Kansas City to get it into overtime, they're down the receivers. You're like, how are they going to do this? There's some real fight in him. And
and I like the job Liam Cohn's done too. If you would have said before the year, if we would have gotten a bunch of 50-year-old coaches in the league, they'd be going, Liam Cohn, what's he ever done? It looks pretty good. I think he's done a nice job too. I think that's been part of it. Finding Kate Otten, right? Finding other ways to do it has helped him too.
So where is Tampa then? Because I think there's this group of teams with records where you're like, well, I can't like you that much. Whereas, I was laughing in the beginning going, if Denver had pulled that game out against Kansas City, they'd be 6-4. They have this terrific defense. And I still would be like, you can have them, where I'm hyping up the Niners. And with these Tampa Bay Buck injuries on the road, and granted, it's because of the field goals probably more than anything, they're even in it with a chance to win the game at the end. Like, I always think there's like, not all 5-5, 6-4, 4-6 teams are created equal. And I think that's the point of the season that we're at.
So I think when they play teams that have good offenses because of where they're at defensively, they're going to win like 40% or 35%. I think we can see that these last few weeks. They've lost to the 49ers, Chiefs. They've lost to the Falcons twice, Baltimore. But earlier, they were able to beat Philly. They were able to beat Detroit. They're able to beat Washington. Their strength of victory is like the highest in the league, meaning the teams that they've beaten have good records other than the Saints. What I look at is bye week, catch your breath. Maybe Mike Evans gets a little healthier. Maybe you get somebody back in your secondary or something. And then you're going to go Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 games where you're disappointed if you don't win 6. And they're not going to win all of them. Maybe they only win 5. But if you win 5, you get 9 wins. That's what I think they're going to be.
Arizona 6-4. They were 2-4. They've won 4 in a row. Wins against the Chargers. I think the Dolphins win was a good win. They destroyed the Bears and they destroyed the Jets, which I think is important if you're looking at like, different teams. Like, do you have any just dominant Sundays on your resume? For a team that you're really trying to project being dangerous in the playoffs, like I need to see a couple of those. They put them together back weeks. If you're just from a statistical standpoint, no one's going to read their numbers in the resume and go, yeah, this defense is really, really good. But I'll tell you, McBride at tight end, he's their leading receiver right now. He's only a couple years out of Colorado State. This guy has turned into a beast. And I think is going to end up at like over 1,000 yards this year. Every single Sunday I'm watching McBride. And I'm not saying like we have to say he's now up there with those other dudes, but he's kind of playing that way. He's become a real game changer for them on top of Harrison, who just apparently is going to catch a touchdown like every other week for them as a rookie receiver.
Yeah, they were kind of my sleeper team coming into the week because I felt like Kyler Murray's stock had dropped so far, like way below what he actually was, right? He had the homework clause. Everybody laughed at him. And then he got hurt. So he just kind of disappeared. And the thinking, he played last year, like we forget, he kind of got his toe back in the water a little bit the last half of the season. I thought that was a situation where either Kyler Murray or Trevor Lawrence was going to have a resurgence this year. Not both, but one of them was going to. And I think Kyler is having that. And I think they have a little bit of a formula. They're going to run the ball and they're going to be pretty physical. And they have like you said, their defense isn't there yet, but they hit on defense. They play aggressively. Budda Baker flies around. They will tag you. And then they have a quarterback who can pull the rabbit out of his hat. So that combination of we're committed to running the ball, we'll hit you, and hopefully they made a trade deadline move to try to help their pass rush. I don't know if it'll do it, but they're 15th in defense, EPA per play during their last 6 games. So 24th on the season. Before that, probably last year in the lower. So they've been better during this run. They've got a little something going. You have to have some on-field results, though, to harness this. And I remember, and I wrote about this in my column today, like like they're a little bit like Detroit was with Dan Campbell to me early on, where you made fun of Gannon, you made fun of Campbell, and they lost a bunch of games, but you felt they were plucky, like they were kind of plucky. They didn't even get their win total last year, but you felt like they exceeded expectations a little bit, but they just didn't have the results. And then in the second year, it starts to turn, and it's dicey. Like they're winning games by 2 points, 1 point. I think they've got 2 1-point wins and a 2-point win. I mean, those are easy losses that could go the other way, but they got them, and you start to get a little confidence, And now you play a couple bad teams, Chicago Jets. You're now able to beat the bad teams, and they've done it consistently. So if you can beat the bad teams, it doesn't mean you're a great team, but you're going to win. You're going to be out of that 4 or 5 win mode, right? You're going to win maybe closer to half your games or around there.
Would you have thought the Broncos were good if they had won yesterday?
Well, I was really, yes, I was really looking at them. I don't know about how good, but like I was thinking maybe I still do, just need to do some analysis on them, because I think so much of the Denver story nationally has been the demise of Russell Wilson, Peyton's handling of that. And then you sort of go, okay, they drafted Bo Nix. He hasn't been that overly impressive, at least early in the year. It's been a little better lately. And I think a lot of people just sort of held off, kind of waiting to see, are they really going to win any games? And then they had their hearts ripped out yesterday. They really should have won the game. And they didn't win the game. And so they didn't get to harness it like the Cardinals have. And I don't know that it's a damaging death blow, but it was a tough one for them. I think they could have claimed some corner turning a little bit more had they won that. But I think they're not bad. I put them in that category. They're not a bad team.
If we do this exercise and say, all right, how many teams would you pick to beat Kansas City today? The Mahomes part of it maybe still ends up like leaving. I think I still have the list at 0. There's teams I think that are better than them. I think Detroit's better than them. I think Baltimore's better than them. Maybe Buffalo. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, Buffalo might beat them this week.
I'd like to see just a clean, like 3 or 4 week Green Bay stretch. Philadelphia, I think, is back in this conversation. We're going to get to Philadelphia here in a second. But I guess I'm asking you, like, how many teams you think are better than them? Because I think it's a different answer than how many teams would you actually pick right now to beat Mahomes?
Yeah. And so I think you can't honestly separate those two things. I think if you think they're going to win the game every time they play a team, then they have to be the best team. They've won. Are they 14 in a row now? 15? Is it 15? Might be 15 in a row, counting playoffs.
Yeah.
So, yesterday was feels fluky to win on a special teams play. But if I'm going to pick them to win every game against whoever they play in a given week, then how can I say that they're not the best team? That's part of being the team, right? You win the game when you play.
Yeah, it sounds pretty simple. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes look at the power ranking and all that kind of stuff. By the way, it is 15 in a row. The last 2 of the regular season, 4 in the playoffs, and 9.
So, here's the thing about them. They're a good defense, but they're not a bunch of turnovers and flashy and anything like that. They're in the bottom. They're in the bottom of turnovers for the last 3 years. Bottom 5-6 teams. So, but they're just really solid defensively, right? They're good. Offensively, not explosive plays, but they can go on a 15-play drive whenever they need to. That's really impossible to do. And when they get Pacheco back too, when their running game, they're just a team that can grind you out. And then Mahomes can still do the incredible thing. And I think DeAndre Hopkins will lead them in touchdown catches this year. I think that'll be a good thing for them. I can't pick someone to beat him.
Okay. What about Philly? Not just again outside of the Kansas City thing, but this is a roller coaster. And I don't know who said it the other day, but it was like the local fans still hate him, and I think the rest of us all think they're pretty good.
It's so funny.
Hate him is strong, but you get my point.
Well, I mean, okay, the win streak, Cleveland, they almost lost the game, it felt like. So you're like, all right, we're not giving them a ton of credit for that. Okay, you beat the Giants. Impressive win over the Bengals, beat them by 20. Love that. But then Jacksonville and Dallas are really nobodies, right? So I think what we're going to see is this next 3-week stretch of home Washington, at Rams, at Ravens, will really give the Eagles a chance to show what they are. And I think if they win 2 of the next 3, then they are who their fans would hope they are, but fear they're not. And if they lose 2 of the next 3, they kind of have a good record, and yet maybe some of those concerns will be valid. I just feel like they have improved, and some of that stuff's died down. A lot of noise around the team with the coaching staff and all of that. It feels like it's calmed down. We'll see. Washington, Rams, Ravens, a lot of stuff can happen.
So you still think they're the second best team in the NFC? Because that's what their seed is today.
Yeah, let me just look at the teams. It helps me to visually see them. Yeah, yes.
You're off Minnesota?
Yeah, I would put Minnesota a notch below that, because I don't think Sam Darnold's that good. I mean, I think he's done a nice job and a nice story, but I think they're very super defense reliant. Whereas I feel like the Eagles are probably just a little bit more balanced as a team. Yeah, I would put Philly second, because I think Washington's also come back to. It's only 1 game lost, but we'll get into that too with where Jaden Daniels is at. I think they're not quite firing like they were. So maybe Philly right in there. Keep our eye on San Francisco.
Okay, before we get to, I guess we could just do it here. Let's start with the Russell Wilson side of things, because you are kind of if there was a special on Nat Geo about Russell Wilson, they'd be like, we got to get Sando. And you would sit there in your chair and they would cut back to you all these different times to give us the full scope of the Russell Wilson thing. It was a rough start, that first game, but he righted himself within the game. I would need to see multiple weeks of this, but I think the one thing that's clear is there's a deep shot trust because of the talent at receiver, whether it's, I think, Pickens getting more looks and then Williams being there a week. We all like Mike Williams. We all know how talented he is. It's just his availability issues, but they plug him in. I think that makes it look a little bit different, where they can win a shootout against a Washington team. And granted, this score of this game was a little fluky because some of the deep turnover stuff that happened. But early returns and maybe just on the deep ball opportunities alone, it feels like it's adding something else that Fields wasn't as consistent with.
Oh, no doubt. I think it's really refreshing. I think the Russell Wilson story got so tiresome and just, it was all about him and his personality and all this stuff. Hey, it's framed up just right in Pittsburgh because he's a $1.2 million player. It's not all about him. He's part of the team. And so I think it's just been a great change for his career. And he's got a good defense again. He's got a physical runner. And the deep ball doesn't leave you, right? I mean, I think you could find a lot of older quarterbacks who could still throw the deep ball better than they could do some other things. I don't know why some of these teams, it feels like they, in fact, I was talking to someone last night. I was like, are they going to play man coverage on these deep balls all forever on Russell Wilson? Right? I mean, because it's just like, he's going to drop it in the bucket. Like, you want to give him that? He can throw the ball down the field in a place where the defense probably won't get it. And if you have a good receiver who can go get it, you might get a touchdown. So it's a great setup. I think he has the components around him with the defense, a team that wants to run it, to be able to hit some of those shots. And he hasn't been blowing the games, right? He hasn't done anything terrible, right? It's been manageable for him. And I do think he's definitely a better passer and an overall quarterback than Justin Fields. Even if he doesn't have that gear to go running like he used to, he can function in this type of a manner.
On the other side, let's talk about Jaden, because you shared some splits on your Athletic piece this morning. Well, it's showing you a difference here. I just don't know how alarming they are this early on.
Well, okay, so if we go back to what our concern was for Jaden Daniels coming in the year was, hey, pretty slight frame. He got blown up a lot, took big hits in college. And then coming in this year, he took some hits, but it didn't seem to be as damaging. Well, then Baltimore played him pretty physical. And when that happened, I was talking to some coaches in the league and they were like, hey, did you see that? You see what Baltimore did to him? And I was like, well, I mean, it was okay. That if teams start doing this,
they didn't have you convinced.
Well, I mean, I watched the game. I didn't watch it from all 7 angles or anything, but I okay. And then the next week, Carolina he had the injury, which again didn't look like something that would necessarily always injure you. But clearly, we've seen a big shift in him to where completion percentage in the first 5 games, 77% down to 60. He's lost a yard per attempt on that. And then the rushing usage, I mean, is in half. He had 52 rushes, counting scrambles in the first 5 games. He has 25 since then. He had 4 rushing touchdowns in the first 5 games, none since then. So something's changed. And if the concerns we had coming into the season were durability over a course of a whole year, given frame and playing style, and Cliff Kingsbury over second halves of seasons, which we saw be an issue for him in the past, either through scheme or through quarterback attrition, right? You have a quarterback who's running in a college type style of on offense. Right now, at this point, we're more concerned about those things than we were a month ago. And that's all I'm saying is, they got playing some tough defenses in here, Pittsburgh, right? What's it going to look like?
Do you think it changes like who he is, or can he just live as a passer?
Oh, I think he could probably live as. I think he's a good passer. Yeah, I think he has a good feel for the position. But I think that other component of it is an X factor that's not going to go away forever. I think it's been muted and diminished for whatever reason. The injury could possibly be it. The ribs is a terrible thing to play through, right? He could really be hurting and taking a shot before the game and that type of stuff. If you have ribs, you don't want to cough, let alone do all the rotational mechanics and things that you have to do in football and take a hit. So totally understandable. Maybe that heals up and then he's kind of fine and, has some bumps and bruises that he can play through, but still be explosive. I think that remains to be seen.
Okay, so that's been the good story for a top pick. Let's talk about the bad story, Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
This is ugly. I don't know that any of it's been as ugly as it was yesterday because New England's terrible. I mean, look, the Cardinals smash them, but they're not the Pats. The Commanders' loss was a really fluky thing. You go back, and I was talking about this at the beginning. Like, well, the Titans, Will Levis kind of threw that one away. The Panthers were terrible. They did beat the Rams in there. The Jags were still a bad football team. But now it's the combination of like how bad it all is with the Bears. So let's start there because I have a follow-up within some of the stuff that you've already talked about with how bad this is. I just can't imagine they're going to run this back with Caleb and the resources you put into a number 1 pick.
You mean run it back next season with the same
staff,
group or run it back?
Yeah. I'm not even talking about offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that stuff will take care of itself because they have, I believe, their entire NFC North schedule is up ahead, plus the 49ers. So it'll take care of itself. Have
you looked at it, by the way? Did you look at the strength of schedule?
I didn't do the number, but I looked at it and it was.
Look at the number.
I wrote it in my column. It's what is it?
If you go to the remaining strength of schedule,
or where do you get it?
Go to Tankathon. This is good because the audience already knows what it is because I
should have put this in the freaking column. I
did you see
the teams. Okay, I'm looking right now. 708. Sorry, Eberflus and those guys over there.
Right.
Their easiest opponent is Seattle, who on any given day is Jekyll and Hyde. They put up 40 first downs on Detroit one week. That's your easiest game.
Yeah. So 708.
And the next team's 587, Cleveland. Oh my gosh. And see, this is exactly what I was saying. Tampa's 328 at the other end. So Tampa's going to have a bunch of wins. Chicago, hey, if Chicago stays the course, it'll be because those guys earned it, right? They will have to turn it around against good teams. They'll earn it. But this decision will make itself over the remaining games. And it looks terrible. The 708, it looks horrific for them. One of the interesting components of this that I didn't get in my column, but I talked about with my editor beforehand, is we don't always do a good job, just we meaning public or media, whatever, of predicting what are good and bad situations for these quarterbacks. Last year, everyone was like, oh my gosh, CJ Stroud is doomed. He's going to the Texans. This organization's crap. And then, as the year goes on, you're like, well, they're pretty good at receiver. The offensive line was better than we expected. Obviously, that's an issue this year. They got a runner, and then at the end of the year, you're like, oh, man, Bryce Young had the worst situation in history. Well, this year I couldn't turn on any
it was even worse
or nothing. People are like,
yeah.
you know, and people are like, oh, this is the best environment for any number one pick ever. And, I didn't write a column saying it wasn't, but I was skeptical of that. I mean, says who? What have they won? The offensive line's good because the GM likes it. I mean, that was another component of my column was like, yes, this is the sky falling here. The bottom's fallen out. There's been some real crises the last few weeks that makes it even seem worse. But is 4-5 way worse than what they should have been going into the year? Or does it just look bad because Caleb's taken 38 sacks and that's the part of it that is most concerning? I think it's the aesthetic of it and just the 38 sacks and not having an answer on offense while these other, Jaden Daniels and even though I don't think Drake May's doing anything, he's at least had some flashes and won a game here recently,
Yeah, it's also because it's going up against Drake May. It's then losing to the number 2 pick the way they did. So there's if you were writing a season worth of episodes for some drama, these would be the moments where it kept getting tougher and tougher and tougher. But with that remaining schedule, I think I'm just shocked how rarely I feel like they're finding some answers. I think the first play that came out in the second half, they roll out Caleb, they brought Rome across the formation, and it was like, oh, hey, did it take the entire halftime to come up with this one play that you knew would work on one side? And by the way, if it was covered, that was the only option they were going to have on the play on top of everything else. I think Caleb could do a better job getting rid of the football on some of those. I think there's some Russell Wilson-ish, I should have said it differently, Russell Wilson-ish sacks to Caleb's game where if you weren't watching the Seahawks, you're like, man, I get Russell Wilson's point. Like he's upset about the protection and all that stuff. Like, man, half of those sacks are on him.
Yeah, there's some of that. There's definitely some of that, but that was to be expected, right? That's what everybody said coming into the year. He was going to be a big play merchant, right? Looking for the home run. He was going to hold the ball too long, and they were going to possibly have 3 and outs and some inefficiency as part of their game because of how he was conditioned to try to play. And that's kind of what's happened. And they haven't been able to lead him out of that or coach him out of it or block him out of it, right? To me, it's a total failure of the offensive line is bad. When they said it was good. So that's not Caleb Williams' fault. That's not even necessarily Shane Waldron's fault. That's a structural thing. Then you get a second chance to hire an OC and you interview a bunch of guys. And by the way, your first guy you hired has already been refired. Okay. They hired Luke Getsy. He's been refired. And then their second one, Waldron, had some decent things in Seattle, but that hasn't gone well. He hasn't had the answers. So that's on the offensive coordinators and on the head coach who hires the offensive coordinators, right? You're definitely 0 for 1 and maybe 0 for 2 if he's going to make a change, which it sounded like he might. So that's a problem. And then you throw in Caleb's culpability with some of that too, and just playing style. I do love the way Caleb handles himself. I love at the podium. He's the one guy who seems like when I listen to him talk, I feel like he gets it. And that's been impressive by him. I don't think it's too big for him, but all the other stuff around him's got to probably be different.
So did you have that in your piece? I think I may have lost it in just all the stuff that I was reading this morning, but Pole's talking about the offensive line. He was like, I can't believe like the 9th guy. Like, I can't believe the last guy we had to let go. And then here we are. And it's just a good reminder of, like you had said, like we thought the O-line was good. Why? Because they told us it was.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There in that quote, which there's a YouTube of it, it's on like the Bears YouTube or something. It was like, hey, and we cut this one guy and he was even like, man, that's the best offensive line room I've ever been a part of. It was like, it was over the top. It was really over the top. So, but I don't remember people in the league going, hey, that offensive line, look out. No, no one ever said that. It was always sort of like coming out of there. And, this is where I think media becomes complicit in going with the narratives that everyone sort of wants to have happen. And I see it with Drake May right now. Oh, Drake May's capturing this team, all of that. Just relax. Wait, they beat the freaking Bears. They had like 4 field goal drives and a 2-yard touchdown pass. He is not taking the league by storm, or just let him play, right? Let it play out a little bit. And I think sometimes when you get the generational talent and they say the line's good and everybody like Keenan Allen, you still got to let it play out.
I'm with you on the Drake May thing too. Like, it's fine. It's okay. Like, it's not a disaster or anything, but it's also not all of the other things that I've been hearing. Cause I'm just like, how did like he completed 7 passes in this one game? Then I remember somebody telling me like, it was different.
Oh, we're seeing flashes. It's different. Yeah. That's just narrative BS. Don't fall for it.
I actually have another Bears follow-up because I thought in your piece it was really interesting. Kevin Warren, who we know worked with the Big Ten, comes in, president of the team, the whole thing. It seemed to be adamant. There's a feeling around the NFL that if they do make the change from Eberflus, that they wouldn't want to hire somebody that's like the headliner. And that's the kind of stuff where I hear, like, I remember it's happened with Dallas forever with Jerry Jones because of what happened in the past. It's like, okay, so he brings in Jimmy, brings in Switzer, but then he went to Parcells, and then it's like, all right, so it's only Campos and Garrett's from now on because Jerry doesn't like sharing the spotlight. So I've heard that forever. I guess I can't just, as like a pragmatist, understand why anyone that would be this committed to the success of the thing that they're supposed to be in charge of would be like, I'd like to get a good coach in here, but I don't want him to be super like popular, and then it takes away from the attention of me. So I'm going to do a worse job. I'm going to hire somebody who's not as good, that prevents me from maybe being, you have the quote in there. All these people seem to hammer this over and over again. I just have a hard time believing competitive people could actually do this at times.
Well, I don't think they necessarily think they're getting a worse coach, and they may not be. There's plenty of coaches that come in that don't fit the Jim Harbaugh role who are good coaches. But nobody usually hires somebody who significantly impinges on their own role or power, right? In any job, right? So some of these team presidents are just kind of business guys in the background. They're not really part of the operation. They're not really out front talking about it. And then there's some guys who are out front. You can go on the Bears website, read a day in a life with Kevin Warren. The limo picks him up at this time, and right, all of that type of stuff. And then shoulder to shoulder with polls and kind of, involved in all this stuff going on. So the people in the league look at that and go, okay, that's probably less compatible with, bringing in a coach who's going to, like you said, be more of a headliner or push aside the input from somebody like that, right? So that's just, you have to look at in every building. They're all different. And Jerry Jones is an extreme example of that. He really emphasizes the business part, and he wants to himself talk every week after the game. Kevin Warren isn't doing that. Right? He's not out there talking about the team, but he's down on the sideline taking notes, last season, and he's, having more input on the football operation than he would if Jim Harbaugh was the coach there, right? It might not be like that. His role might not be the same.
So you buy it then, because the way you lay it out there, because Jones is different, it's still his team.
Jones is
it's
different.
Not Kevin Warren's team. So you would say like Warren or someone in his role would be wary of, maybe it's the Chip Kelly thing, where like Chip Kelly, which I mean, Howie didn't lose his gig, but there was clearly like a disconnect between the Philadelphia power structure there when Chip was there, right? And then it
absolutely, he did get displaced a little bit. I mean, he was still there. I think then his office change of where it was or whatever, things like that, and then he had enough equity with the owner to step back into that role, and it's gone pretty well for them. So. Look, we need to see how it plays out there. This isn't fact, right? This is analysis of the situation. We'll see what they do. Maybe they surprise us and go in a different direction, but that's not the expectation just based on people, from afar, from other teams who look at it. And you have to take into account those people's perspectives too. They have their own biases as well. So, I think it's something interesting to keep in mind. We don't just take it to the bank as fact, because they could do whatever, they could do something different. Depends who the candidate is too, right? Maybe there's somebody who's a big coach that Kevin Warren actually really likes or has a relationship with, right? Those are the types of things you just don't know.
Yeah, I guess I couldn't imagine like, okay, so this didn't work out. You spent like, how long do you think you get to be team president? Wouldn't you rather be team president of the team, even if it meant that coach was a headliner enough to have a little bit more direct line to ownership? I understand the ownership thing with the Bears is about as challenging as it gets too. But
think of it this way. Where was Bill Belichick rumored to go last offseason?
Atlanta.
Why is it perceived that he didn't go there?
Because he wanted full control, and everybody that already had control in there told Arthur Blank, don't bring him in here because he's going to want total control, which basically was going to undermine what they were already doing.
Right. It was perceived to be because of their Kevin Warren, right? Rich McKay.
Yeah.
That's what it was perceived to be. So,
but I tell you right now,
yeah.
I would hire Belichick to be my coach. I'd be like, you're never doing personnel after your run.
Hey, he might go to a different team.
Okay. Well, he didn't. He didn't, though, did he?
No. We'll see.
Anybody, look, I have to separate the two things. I mean, you sit there and you watch these clips and everything, and like, I'll watch a clip of him breaking something down, and then I may disagree. Like, do you realize what you just did? Like, you disagreed with Bill Belichick about a football thing that happened, about his thoughts on like who this player would be.
I love that component.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I go, what are you doing? And then I think like, but God, like he was the guy in charge of putting together what became at one point, I think, like the least exciting roster in the entire league. But we've been over the history.
They do things that you scratch your head at, but they also have way more information. So there's things they know that, we don't know.
Imagine we're seeing a different game. Yeah. Imagine we're seeing a different game that Bill, and he's great on TV. He's great with those breakdowns. And, I'm lucky enough to, be friends with somebody that works with him. And, he just tells me like all the time, it's like a really cool relationship and getting to know him. So anyway, thank you for letting us to get to know you for about 36 minutes today. You can check out my Sando's must-read Pick Six column every Monday morning. It is essential for me every week of the show, and it should be essential reading for NFL fans as well on The Athletic. Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.